All right, we're live.
Should we just wait just a minute until more people come on?
Okay.
Just like a minute or so. Should we start, Kate?
Sure, should I? We have 35.
35, yeah.
Okay, good morning, everyone. And thank you for joining us this morning. I am Kate Licata, and Stefania Bopp and I are the 12th grade networking co-chairs. Today, we're gonna learn about the senior internship program and how to deal with the college decision-making process. This morning, we have Heather Bianco, who is the senior internship coordinator with us, and Dr. Elizabeth Ortiz Schwartz, who is an adolescent psychiatrist at Silver Hill Hospital. And we have our post-prom chairs, Allie Dunlap and Meg Mayhos with us. And Ari Rothman is also here to help us field any of your questions. He is the 12th grade vice principal. And please use either the chat function or the Q&A function, and we will answer your questions at the end of each presentation. And as always, this Zoom will be recorded and uploaded to the New Canaan website as soon as possible. So thank you very much. And thank you to all our speakers today for joining us as well. Heather, want to take it away?
Yeah, thank you very much. So like she said, I'm Heather Bianco. I coordinate the senior internship program here at the high school. This year, we're really happy to have the senior internship back in full force. So really what the program is, it is an optional program. It's the last 4 weeks of school. Basically, the seniors' grades are frozen if they want to participate in the program. Their grades are frozen on May 17th. The only caveat with that is obviously if there's AP testing, they would have to take their AP testing if it's after May 17th. That's not frozen. The kids have to be passing all their subjects to participate. They can't be, their attendance must be good standing. They can't be at risk of not graduating, then we wouldn't allow them to participate. So how it works is this: on November 8th, it has already been opened, the registration for all the seniors to register. It's a pretty easy registration. We ask seniors to write 250 words or more why they want to participate, what they hope to gain out of it. They have 8 weeks to do this. They have from November 8th all the way until January 4th to get it done. It's really a quick and painless. I hate using the word essay because they start thinking college essay. This is not college essay at all. This is only 250 words, just writing meaningful response of why they'd like to participate. That's what we're looking for. So after that's done, on January 6th, the portal that they registered in will then open up and they can review all the internships that we have available. We ask the kids to pick 15 or more that they'd like and rank them in order that they would like. They can change the order whenever they'd like. They have the entire month of January to do that. Then in the month of January, each student will be interviewed by 2 senior internship committee members for a 15-minute interview. Basically what that does is we're really just talking about what they like to do. We go over their choices, why they picked the ones they picked. We read over the essay with them, and we just try to understand what they're looking, for in an internship. Then probably, I'm thinking probably end of February, we'll make a decision on the best fit out of their choices that they picked. Now, there's also other ways to do this. If they would rather self-design, or we call, find your own. Kids can actually find their own internship. It just can't be with a family member, or they can't internship for themselves. So internships for in-person need to be in a 30-mile radius of New Canaan. We are accepting remote internships or hybrid. So obviously remote does not need to be in a 30-mile radius of New Canaan. That could be outside those limits. And the other thing, during the internship itself, each student is assigned a school mentor. And that usually is a teacher, it could be a staff member, someone on the committee, it could be a principal. And that mentor is really to check in on them during their internship if they have any issues or questions. Of course, I'm always here, but it does make the program run, very smoothly with having a mentor, working with the student. That person will check in with the student, like I said, and also will visit them at their internship one time during the 4 weeks. And that could be, via Zoom or in person. It's up to the mentor. I'm just trying to think. Also, in March and May, we have a couple of mandatory meetings that we have with the students. And it's really to talk about career-based activities. We'll go over resume building, LinkedIn account, workplace etiquette. So we have a couple of speakers coming in, whether it will be in person or in Zoom, I'm not sure at the particular moment, but we'll figure that out. And everything I just said is always on the school website. So if you go under school counseling, seniors, 12th grade, you'll find senior internship program information. That's not the portal, that's just a website that has all the information about the program and the date. I don't know, is there anything else? Ari, am I missing anything?
No, I think you got everything.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions I can answer?
I don't see any questions here, so.
You were very thorough.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I said, everything is always on the school website, the self-design forms if kids want to find their own internship. There is plenty of time to do that. We ask for, I think I have the dates here, but the deadline to find your own and submit the forms in February 7th. I'll most likely push that date a little further out. But the other thing too, I do want to mention is I do offer informational meetings for the kids, which I'll, send a sign up genius. Did it a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to do it again this week and next week. So if kids have any questions and they want to come to a 10-15-minute meeting with me, that's fine. Sign up. And of course, I'm in the attendance office. They can pop in whenever they want as well. So I'm always here if they have any questions.
There is one that popped up. It says, what do they do during the internship? That's
okay. Well, that's really up to the internship host, depending on where the internship is. So to give you an example, it could be working at a farm. Then you're going to be dealing with animals and, feeding the animals. If it's at a business or real estate, depending if the person would like social media done. So it is very vast what they can do. It could be social media. It could be learning about finance. Like I said, animals. It could be working in an art gallery. Obviously medical is a little bit hard. We do have a few medical, obviously with HIPAA laws and COVID, as you can imagine, it's a little tough. But there are some, and a lot of times you're shadowing either, we have one dentist that's participating, and we also have an ear, nose, and throat doctor. So it's, working in the office, but it really depends. And just so you know, the kids can see the descriptions. So when it opens up on January 6th, you can see the descriptions and read what the student will be doing. I mean, it's a brief description. So it's not just the title, oh, you're working, at a farm or you're working in a real estate. It actually will tell you. So each host writes their own description. So you'll be able to see that.
Okay.
great. I think that's it.
Thank you, Heather.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, take care.
Good morning. So I get to speak now?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for inviting. This is such a pleasure. Everybody can see me, hear me okay? Thumbs up?
Yeah.
Awesome. So my name is Elizabeth Ortiz Schwartz. I'm a child adolescent psychiatrist. I work at Silver Hill Hospital. And I'm really thrilled to be talking with you today because I have struggled with this issue on both sides of the equation. So today I wanted to share a little bit about my personal experiences with my college process. So Nearly 3 years ago, I was sitting at my kitchen table with a mess of papers in front of me. I had files with titles like "In Decisions, in Search, and Exploring Your Future." And I had all the glossy brochures from the beautiful campuses and pictures of students that were engaged in deep learning, showing all the athletic progress, the pride and community engagement, and showing statistics about how many intramural clubs and how many semester abroad opportunities there were. Those were very carefully curated into all these pamphlets. Amidst my pile of papers, my child was in the other room, in the living room, far away from me, in front of the computer, trying to decide, after having gone through 40 campus tours, 40 in-person college visits, had submitted 15 applications, had sorted them carefully between reaches and likely schools and safeties, and having gone back to interviews, revisited several campuses, had gone to the receptions for accepted students, and was ready to hit send on the application of the 2 top choices. The field had been narrowed, and after considering every single thing in terms of acceptance rates, the strength of the major that my child wanted to be involved with, the faculty and so forth, there was still no decision. It was the deadline, and my kid was struggling. We were thinking about how far the schools are from home, and even what political leanings the state has, what kind of food experiences from farm to table to more, communal dining experiences. By the time that I was sorting out the schools by average yearly temperatures, by the way, Connecticut is warmer than Massachusetts, it's warmer than some parts of New York, all this useful information. By the time that I was looking at the yearly snowfall by town, it just hit me. Like a ton of bricks, I recognized that I was turning into Momzilla. And I realized I'm not sharing my screen, so you cannot see my pictures. So let me so now. Okay, I'm not allowed to participate, but if you saw my screen, you would see a picture of a Godzilla. Is there any way that I can do my screen share?
Let me see what I can do.
All right.
I'm going to make you a co-host and see how that goes.
Okay. At any rate, so we got to this point, and I did not feel that my kid needed another piece of information. It became so overwhelmingly clear to me that what my kid needed at that time was some space. There are a lot of feelings that need to be processed, and kids need space to do so. At my point, what I needed to do as a parent was to give my kid permission to be okay with whatever that final decision was. My kid needed to be in that driver's seat. And when I recognized that, I remember a lot of what the college advisors had told us as parents, that kids find their place. They just do. At that moment, my kid, who had been typically very indecisive, she had been in the driver's seat for a long period of time. And yes, she had said, I want to visit this school and visit that and so forth. But at that point, the process became more important. And she started thinking about who she is and who she wants to be at a deeper level that she had ever considered before. And yes, there were lots of people who helped guide the process, from reminders of, which letter and what they should do, and, reviewing an essay. But it was my kid who had turned at some point from this kid who was indecisive and had no idea what they wanted to do, to a person who was really thoughtful. And that decision-making process is what's important in the relationship. And, at the time that my kid was ready to decide, there was no need for an anxious parent to be projecting my own fears and insecurity, my worries about what a good college education does. I see that all the time. And I had prided myself, not me, I'm not going to fall for that. I help kids all the time and teens that are worried, that have college anxiety, even to higher levels where it reaches clinical levels of depression. I had numerous school consultations. I had attended many lectures. I had read the books and TED Talks and all those kinds of things. I had a couple of particular very resounding works, for example, and I wish I showed you the screen. Let's see if I can do that now.
Yeah, you should be able to now.
All right, so. All right, so you can see my mom's picture. So this is a great book by Julie Lithcott-Hames. She talks periodically in the area, and it is about how to raise an adult. And the way that she came about it was in her own work as a freshman and undergraduate advisor at Stanford University. And in her research, she learned that hyperparenting, it results with, the result is kids that don't have a strong sense of themselves. They're poorly equipped to handle the demands of life. She talks about students who go to the prestigious university who might call the parents all the way across the country just to find directions to the library, or they call to find out how to make a cup of coffee. She recognizes that there's tremendous emotional fragility, or as she calls them, teacups. And the best way to counteract that is by measures that help increase accountability and self-reliance. Things like having jobs or chores contribute more to maturity and well-being than checking all the boxes of all the extracurricular activities. And I think slowly school admissions offices are very gradually catching up and counting experiences such as outside jobs and caring for siblings at a better, and all those opportunities in a better way. I also recommend this book. I had read Cal Newport's How to Be a High School Superstar, which despite its title, that initially appears to suggest that it's a twist, that you have to work harder and faster and meaner and all of that. It's really about becoming much more, the twist is that kids who can get into some of the top rich schools, they do not need excessive AP taking and overwhelming activity schedules or constant stress. That it can be done with what he terms relaxed superstars. These are students who have gotten spots in high universities, in top colleges, by actually doing less. What they do is they lead more uncluttered lives, more authentic lives with less stress. They have better mission successes. And the formula is actually deeper work, being able to be more selective with their work and activities and focusing on becoming an interesting person, rather than doing all of this, checking all these boxes and doing all these activities. So this was very helpful to me as a parent. Clinically, I had seen so many kids in outpatient and clinical settings that had experienced burnout from being in a hyper-competitive school environments. And I saw kids pushing themselves really hard, even if their parents were not pushing. By the time that they got to me, the kids were pushing themselves extremely hard, shutting down, at times procrastinating, and avoiding school altogether. There were kids that seemed to be superficially handling all the pressures of school, but sometimes the cost is very high, and they're doing other things like not sleeping well, not having balance in their lives. And by the time they come to see me, they typically are in a pickle. They're in significant despair and really very stressed out. And there is a mental health crisis with teenagers and kids really struggling, during this time. So I had read and I had experienced all of these things, and it's funny that in a fairly typical fashion, My husband was, he attended many tours and drove some of the time and cheered when the news was good that this acceptance in this college. And he was supportive of my kid when the news were not so good at times. But he was fine with whatever the outcome, whatever the final decision, he was fine. He was not around. He was off, sleeping and doing other things. And he got it. He was just not trying to be a coach. He was trying to be a cheerleader from the sidelines, really guiding and really cheering rather than guiding. And that's me. So I think that the decision to go to college is going to really involve a lot of factors. And I'm not being naive to say that, for each family, everything is going to be difficult and different, whether it is academic issues, financial, issues, everything is going to be different for these families. And, the truth is that we're all navigating tremendous turbulent waters. With COVID, we're just through this uncharted times. So factoring into the decisions, things like travel restrictions and understanding how the quarantine policies of a particular school, it's a whole new world. You not only have to worry whether your child, it has clean underwear for school, but are they able to wear a proper mask and not have peers in their rooms when they're not supposed to, and all those things. So what is the solution? Are we to panic? Well, that could be a choice, but I think that we need to really refocus and start thinking, because the world has seen other tragedies in the time. We have not gone through worldwide tragedies as this, but humanity has survived things like the Black Plague, the Spanish flu, World War II, and other things. So I think that the people who thrive under the circumstances are those who find opportunities amidst and find opportunities and time for innovation and creativity amidst the chaos. How can we encourage that resiliency? Well, I think it's important. I think we need to focus on what is there, what is possible. There's a changing landscape. There are some schools that are not requiring standardized tests. Cornell, for example, will have an extra 17,000 applications to review this year because of that. And it can be overwhelming, and one hopes that they screen them all well. But in some ways that might, not be the worst thing. Some kids might be overlooked, that's true. But as schools reshuffle and sort things out for themselves, there may be other things that may give kids advantage. There's less international students, some smaller schools are looking for applicants and so forth. So that the hope is that, in order to attract them, they may have better financial assistance packages and things like that. So the whole world is reshuffling in terms of higher education. In terms of what to do about this, we can focus on what we can control and teach our kids to do so. There's a concept in psychology called the locus of control. And that means the degree in which people believe that circumstances are controlled by their behavior, and how much they believe that they are powerless to control, that they cannot influence their environments. And people who tend to focus on what they can do when things are difficult develop resilience and grit. So British psychoanalyst and pediatrician D.W. Winnicott, in 1950s, he talked about the concept of being a good enough parent. And that's the cornerstone of healthy families, which involves a concept of providing the essentials to really allow kids to have some basic understanding and security, but also not trying to be perfect, because allowing for those frustrations lets the kid accept that you are not perfect, the world is not perfect. And when kids are able to see the world in that way, they actually find a balance within themselves. They see things, they see reality in the world as it is, not as a fantasy. And that, I think that's very important, because for parents, good enough means being able to set limits, being able to set boundaries, not being permissive enough, but also not getting so worked up because the kid's job is to push back. Your job is to establish some limits, but the kid's job is to push back against those limits. That's how kids grow. That's how they develop themselves. The important part for parents is to find a balance between not being overly strict and overly permissive. And that's a concern a lot of parents have relaxed their guard during these tumultuous times in terms of, your kids drinking and other kinds of activities, which in some ways is problematic, because what you're teaching your child is that when things get tough, it's okay to lean into activities that could be less than productive. So still be vigilant, but also be a little bit laid back in terms of, kids are undergoing a lot of stressors. Don't walk around, don't walk around eggshells. Don't feel like you're walking on eggshells, but do try to understand that they're facing even more pressures this year and last year than in the past. So, I think it's important to, to not drive the kids too hard, to let them unfold their wings and make some mistakes. Kids, cortical function does not become fully regulated until they're in their 20s. So the parts of the brain that have to do with really good decision making are not there yet. They are going to need some support from others. And maturity is not a linear process. There's going to be some areas that the kids are going to be very advanced and some areas that they're going to struggle. Recognize that and scaffold for those things, but you don't need to overcorrect for everything. And it's important to give your child challenges and responsibilities at a little level and build up gradually from there. And I think that is important because that will be a determinant of how they do in school, but also later on how they do in a changing job market. And that is important to really put their well-being front and center in what the process looks like. So what does this look like for parents? I think for parents, what it means is, first recognize that this process is very, very hard, really hard. Take time for yourself, put your own oxygen mask first before you try to help others. Create some space for yourself, take a moment, for your child and for your family and everybody else, but also take some time for yourself. It's okay to spend time with friends. You may want to spend every waking hour with your child to try to hold on to every bit of childhood experiences, but your kid needs some space too. They need to spend time with friends. They need to, to do other things. They need to start building up to what a life without your kids in the house might look like if you have, if this is your last kid going to college. For kids, do recognize that they're under tremendous pressures. They are already having a harder time regulating their emotions. Again, that part of the frontal lobe that has to do with, emotion regulation is still not fully there. So they're going to have ups and downs. Try to tolerate the ups and the downs. Try to stay attuned, and you don't need to coddle them. You just need to let it play out to a degree. Work it through with your child. Try to find out what is important to them about a particular school. It's okay to ask a child, for example, I wonder why you feel a city school is a better fit for you. Questions like that involve curiosity rather than making decisions on determinations. And kids will change. Instead of saying, 6 months ago, you told me that you would never live in a city, and they're telling you something different. So just listen, because things do change. So try to be patient and be curious in how you approach this. Allow some time for decompression, for your kid to be able to, to have spaces to just relax and do some gaming and spend time with kids. And then even in the middle of this big process, taking small breaks is important. Taking larger breaks, will come later, but they need to have those spaces. Try to avoid giving a lot of information about your own. Try to involve your own narrative. For example, don't get so caught up into where you went to school, where where other people did and what they're doing or not doing. I think that there will be time for that, sharing biographical information. But I think when parents lead with that and lean in too much to I did this and I did that, creates a separate level of pressure and making assumptions, and the kids will read into that of not being good enough if they don't do this in your way, or sharing your mistakes at some point. They need to make their own. So I would just try to generally stay away from a lot of autobiographical information, There will be time to share it. And when the kids ask you, you should be honest and let them know things that are important to you. But if they're not asking, then don't volunteer a whole lot of it. When the acceptances roll in, do try to be sensitive. Try to avoid the urge to tell everybody, including a lot of friends and relatives. Just create some space for others and saying, instead of like, where did you get in? Where did you get in? Just more like, okay, we're waiting for all the acceptances, or, Johnny is, going to put all this together and going to give it some thought, but try to build some space between you and your extended family and other people who very well meaning are going to put a lot of pressure in the process, and the kids need to work it out with you, this, advisors and other people. But having a lot of cooks in the kitchen could be a problem. And once you have narrowed it down and you are thinking about it, do try when you can to have them have a tour of the campus. I know that this could be very, very hard, but even if it's a virtual tour, or to think about it, food is very important. Have them go back and eat the places that they would be eating. And then remind them that everybody's going to be a fish out of water at the beginning, and so it's going to be tough, but they'll find their people once they start taking classes and getting accustomed and things like that, that they will find their way. But I think it's really important to get a feel for where you are. Now, not every kid needs that. Some kids can do well with that, but most kids do need to feel the environment and get a second look at it before their final decision. Turn rejection into motivation. When a kid is struggling with a decision and they really feel that they have been slighted by school, just kind of really, either take it light and say, hey, it's their loss. Or if you really, really are inspired, then it shows you that you're going to go to another school and really show them what they're missing, and then maybe reapply if you feel like it. But at the very least, turn that rejection into fuel and motivation to continue to move forward. It is not personal. The number of kids that get rejected is usually higher than the number of kids that get accepted to any school. So I think that reframing that in a way that is positive can really, really help the kids if they feel like they're getting into a slump of not getting over the top choices. And comparison is the thief of joy. So, if the kids are going to be comparing to themselves on like, this kid with this grades got into this school, they may not know all the different, pieces that went into that. So it's important not to make assumptions and to just focus on themselves, to keep on trying to reframe that. The videos, acceptance videos can be pretty, pretty difficult for some kids, bragging excessively and so forth. I think it's really generally not a great thing. And, at the end of the day, it's about, giving some permission for the kids to kind of really expand their repertoire, their emotional repertoire with this process. So in my experience, what I ended up doing is I told my kid that day, when we were at the table filled with papers and she was overwhelmed in the other room, it's like, you know what, you got this. You've gotten this far. I validated that they did all the hard work. They had sat through the courses, they had taken the tests, they had put in the applications, they had put in the effort. They had gotten to some schools and not others, and they had narrowed it down. So all they need to do was just, take some time, sleep on it, be okay with whatever the decision. Flip a coin if they must. But I had to tell my child that at that point I trusted them enough that they were in the driver's seat and they had to make their own decision. And so they did. And I have a second child who's going through that process right now, and it looks very different. But by understanding the process the first time, I have not fallen into the Godzilla or the parent trap. I'm trying to be less of a bulldozer these days. I'm trying to prepare the child for the road, not the road for the child. Thank you very much. And are there any questions?
Thank you very much. There is one question. It's not really college related. It's more about underage drinking.
Yes.
And this parent is saying that it's very high among the high schoolers, and that parents appear to be permissive. She feels like she's the rare parent amongst her daughter's friends and peers that has strict rules about drug or alcohol use. What is the best way to communicate with our child about sticking to limits even when most are not?
Let me just go back to the other screen. I think that that is an incredible question, really very important. Hold on, let me just close this out. Am I still with you?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just trying to do the screen unshare. Hold on. So yes, this is an extremely important question and one that I get all of the time. Especially during the pandemic, as 1 out of 6 parents who used to be primarily restrictive in their tolerance of their kids drinking or using substances is now openly permissive. So the norms have relaxed in that situation. I think it's important for parents to understand that the kids' brain are still in development, and it's very different to add toxins to the brain when a person is younger than when they're older. What happens, instead of people learning how to be responsible consumers or responsible drinkers, kids end up being more likely to binge drink and have more problems in the future. You really are killing some of the brain cells that are needed for focus, attention, concentration, executive function, which matter more when you're younger than when you are older. So you're not going to see the immediate effects, but you're going to see the longer term concerns. The chances of a person who starts drinking at a very early age, let's say the age of 14, and a person who starts drinking after the age of 21 to have binge drinking is 41%. The person that starts at 14 will have a 41% chance of having binge eating disorder when they're, alcoholism and binge eating when they are an adult. Whereas a person that starts later could still have a chance of problems, but the difference is tremendous. So it's important to know the data. You're not, by being permissive and allowing your kids to drink, you are not preparing them to be able to be responsible drinking. If you're worried that they're going to go to college and have alcohol fueled parties, or that this is the norm or everybody is doing it, you are actually allowing your child to do something to their brain that could eventually have a lot of repercussions. So if a person is going to drink, I think the idea is, wait until you're an adult. Why poison your brain at this point in time where you may not have immediate effects, but it may be more impactful. Kids get into more accidents and problems, poor decision making around other things related to substances. So I think that the idea of using responsibly at this age before their brain is fully formed is truly a fallacy. And what we need to do is try to provide environments and situations where we're not really as permissive with it. It is true that in some areas, parents will face legal repercussions if they are allowing teen drinking in their homes, and something happens, even if they're not present in the home, if they should have known, so there could be some legal consequences in terms of hosting laws, etc. But the more important thing is that we spend so much time protecting our children, feeding them good foods, and trying to worry about getting to the best schools, and that we are in some ways, if we're not vigilant, we're in some ways enabling potentially more problematic behavior in the future. So I think that that's part of the decision making, and open discussions with your child would be helpful. And if they're going to, if other parents are permissive, you can only control what you can control. You can worry about how yours is able to say no to certain things, and how you can train your child in the future to manage the good old peer pressure. I hope that was helpful.
Okay, there's another comment from a parent. It may be helpful to mention organizations like RAM Council for the Child, CARES for parent education support.
Absolutely. RAM Council is a wonderful organization, and they do a fantastic job with the kids themselves to encourage them, and for the parents. So very worthwhile.
Yes, thank you for that. Oh, another question. You just got a thank you from the woman who asked the question about the drinking. Thank you so much for your thorough answer.
You're welcome.
I don't see any other questions coming up. Okay, thank you so much for your time, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today, inviting me
Thank
out.
you.
today. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much.
Okay, Ally and Meg.
Good morning. I'm Meg Mayhouse.
And I'm Allie Dunlap.
And we're the co-chairs for Post-Prom 2022.
So a little bit about post-prom tradition. It started in 1959, over 60 years ago. A group of New Canaan High School parents formed a committee to plan an all-night party after the senior prom. So the purpose was to provide a safe environment for the students who wanted to stay out basically all night after the prom. And the tradition has continued up until 2020 when it was canceled due to COVID. And then last year, also because of COVID, the concern, the committee instead planned a hybrid kind of post-prom gala event, which was after graduation. So this year, the PFA would like to get back to the tradition of giving our seniors a safe and fun celebration. It is held at Waveney House after the prom, which is going to be on Friday, May 13th. It will run, I think, typically from midnight until around 4:30 in the morning. And it is an enormous undertaking. So we will be planning to host probably close to 300 students after the prom, and it'll go, like I said, from midnight till 4:30 in the morning. We'll have food, games, entertainment, music, prizes, everything to keep the kids engaged. And it's all geared toward keeping them safe on prom night.
So none of this can happen without your support. All seniors, whether they go to the prom or not, are invited to post-prom, and no tickets are needed, and there's no required fee to attend the post-prom party, but we do rely on parent donations. So we would appreciate it if you would consider donating the suggested $150 per student. Additional amounts are, of course, always welcome. And there will be a link to donate on the PFA website. If it's not up now, it will be up very soon. And donating early is important so that we know what kind of budget we have to work with to plan for the kids. We also need you to share your time and talents. We'd love to have every family's help in some way to pull this night together. It's a huge undertaking, as Allie said. And there are opportunities for everyone to help in all different types of ways. We need help with technical support, decorating, games and entertainment, prizes, food. The Ram Jam Fashion and Music Festival will be back this year. We need help with that. And that will take place in March. So there is a volunteer survey form that you could fill out. It was linked in this week's PFA RAM email. And keep an eye out for further communications about post-prom from us in the future.
Yeah,
Near
and if you
future.
have any questions, please reach out. But otherwise, we'll keep the survey up for probably another week or two, and then we'll be reaching out for everyone who filled it out and looking to build the committees. And we hope everyone will support in any way they can.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We don't see any questions.
No questions.
Go fill out the survey.
Exciting that it's back. So,
Absolutely. All right. Well, have a good rest of the week, everyone. Thank you
thank
again
you
for
so
joining.
much. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.